in history, legislators, judges, and even philosophers have got it wrong before. Let's take the example of slavery. Plato said that some men were born to be slaves and others were born to be free men. Now, we would just think this is a ridiculous statement today, right? We would not put up with someone saying this, and we would not agree with it, and for great reason, because it's not true. All men and women and children were born free. So the philosophy of Plato, unfortunately, that some men were born slaves, permeated the culture, the laws and the policies and the practices of the day for centuries to come. Persons who were born slaves, apparently, were considered chattel to be bought and sold, to be owned, to be beaten, to be traded. This to us is abhorrent, but it was not so long ago that this was the philosophy of the day. Legislators. Let's think of the Fugitive Slave Act in America in the 18th century. Out of the 17th century, abolition of slavery is occurring, and here we have America, the South, there's still slavery. In the North, there's free men. And the Fugitive Slave Act ensured that if a slave escaped from the South to the North, then their owner had every right to hunt them down, to destroy them, to beat them, to kill them if they wanted to, right? So this was the legislation of the day, in amongst slavery being abolished and hearts and minds of mankind being changed. The abolition of slavery was not enough, because there were some legislators who adhered to this philosophy and changed and passed laws that said that slaves are to be enslaved, beaten, hunted down and killed for if their master felt there was a reason. So legislators have got it wrong in the past. Judges. There are several cases in which matters came before the courts, both in England and America, during the abolition of slavery in the 17th, 18th centuries, right? And there were several matters where slaves were ruled to be the master's belonging, chattels, were ruled to, by ship owners, be cargo, for which the slave ship owner can claim insurance. And the Dred Scott case, most of all, shouted from the rooftops that, first of all, slaves cannot be free men. Second of all, slaves have no political voice. And thirdly, slaves have no rights, therefore, as citizens. So they cannot vote, they cannot be educated, they cannot have access to health or other services, but for their master deciding that they could. So slavery was all over the world, right? And it permeated the culture, the laws, and the courts, and the philosophies of the day. So we can see Plato, a very famous philosopher. We can see from legislation, the Fugitive Slave Law Act, and we can see from case law, from judicial decision making, Dred Scott case being one of them, that judges, legislators, and philosophers have got it wrong in the past. So what changed this in history? Well, the people rose up. Of course, Wilberforce was one of those. He and his colleagues created a movement through culture, philosophy, politics, law, where they abolished slavery. But it had to come from the hearts and minds of the people. It had to come as a movement. It had to come from people rising up and stand against the human rights violations of their day. Can you think of a modern day example of where we need to do this, and where the philosophers, legislators, and judges have got it wrong, and where the people need to rise up, stand against this, and exercise their democratic rights? My name is Andrea Takaji. I'm a human rights advocate, activist, and academic, and I implore you to engage in the parliamentary advocacy and lobbying process. All the best.